Hi, Maria. Carolina, how are
Hello,
you?
how are you?
Very good. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, my name is Maria Carolina Paraventi. I'm originally from Brazil, but I do live in Florida. I've been living here in Florida for the past 26 years now. And when I came to the United States, I was about 11 years old, and my mother and we went to New York. So I lived in New York first for 25 years, way back when. And then I did go back to Brazil, and I was back and forth. And I wanted my son to get closer to my family and get to know his roots. So he remained in Brazil. He's still there in Rio. And I returned to the United States to actually take care of my mom, who was living in Florida at that time. So I'm an interpreter. I'm a simultaneous interpreter, seminar interpreter for the United States Department of State. I'm contracted by them. And for the courts, federal courts, state courts, district courts, conferences, just, for all of the fields that need interpretation, Portuguese interpretation.
Oh,
I have a master's in marketing and communications, conflict resolution, and I also am almost getting my certification as a Heart Math Institute coach. And
nice.
so I do also translate the
Oh,
pearls for Summit Lighthouse de Brazil. So the pearls into Portuguese. I also translate. The translation is the written
mhm,
format, and
okay.
interpretation is the verbal format for communicating from English to Portuguese and vice versa. And I have been doing also for our organization the interpretation and translations for the event, especially the Freedom Conference. And it was really a privilege at the time when our beloved mother was with us to interpret the dictations live. I think that's the really the most important, I would say, part of my profession that as an interpreter, I think it was the peak for me to be there and do the live interpretation for the dictations.
Were you there live for all live dictations?
Well, not all, but the ones that I started in 91. So
Mhm.
as of 92 on, I was there. Yes, I was there for the Freedom Conferences because Freedom Conferences are actually the only ones so far that we do the Portuguese interpretation. And so when it was live, yes, the Portuguese team, not only myself, but others also interpreted for Mother at the time. Yeah.
So you've already brought up some curious things. Who is Mother and what are freedom conferences?
Mother is I would say, a sweet way of referring to the founder, one of the founders of our organization, which is the Summit Lighthouse and Church Universal and Triumphant. She and her husband, Mark L. Prophet, her name is Elizabeth Clare Prophet, were the founders of the Summit Lighthouse. And we refer to her as Mother, just as in many, uh, I would say, Eastern traditions of spiritual, who follow spiritual path and whose guru or whose leader are called Mother or Guru Ma, as we refer to her. And so what was the second question that you had?
Oh, you mentioned something called a freedom conference, and not everyone
The
I know
Freedom
what that.
Conference. Okay, yes. The organization uh, has every year during the summer, we have a conference. Actually, there are four conferences. They hold four conferences during the year. And the main one is the conference during the summer, which is called Freedom Conference.
Great. And what kind of things would people expect to find at a conference?
The conference is usually, it has one main theme, and it's always directed at any um, a spiritual meaning of the path, of the spiritual path. And so the conference includes teachings of these two, um, whom were anointed as messengers of the Great White Brotherhood while they were here with us. And messengers is simply those who are the instruments to convey the word of God, just like we had prophets way back when, the Bible has so many prophets that we learn from. They were such messengers that conveyed the word of God, the word of the masters who walked this earth just like we are doing right now. And through their uh, achievements, through their advancing on their path, on the spiritual path, they were able to resolve, let's put it that way, all of that they needed to resolve in order to go back to the original form, which is how we were created. We say that God, back to God's heart. And so these conferences offer us the teachings that they received from God, from the master, from these masters, and also the dictations. Um, Nowadays, we hear past dictations, as both of them have made their transitions and are considered by us also as ascended. They have also ascended. They have gone up to that form that where we were originally created by God. And also we have activities. There's a lot of activities. We have yoga classes. We have bhajans that are played and we can sing along. There's also a teens program. There's children's program that the parents not work, but help um, organize and coordinate. So there's a lot going on. It's a wonderful atmosphere. It's in Montana, very close to the Yellowstone Park, where many of us, we go either before, a few days before, or we stayed 2, 3, couple of days afterwards in order to visit the park. And it's a beautiful setting, the mountains, and it's just wonderful to be there, the vibration. So, and they do hold it 4 conferences a year. The Freedom Conference in the summer is the longest one. There's also an Easter conference. We have the Harvest, which is during fall, usually during the Columbus Day holiday, and also the end of the year conference. And they last it's a shorter conference, like maybe 4 or 5 days. The Freedom Conference is a week, and then we extended with what we call, it's a more intensive study, which is called Summit University. Our organization also has that arm, which is the arm of the studies, various studies of the Ascended Masters of the Great White Brotherhood. So it turns out to be about 2 weeks total for the Freedom Conference NSU combined.
Thank you. You brought up some more really good terms. You mentioned Summit University and Ascended Masters and Great White Brotherhood. Maybe you could tell us more about that.
Yes, the Summit University, as I said, is an arm of the organization it's really a school of theology. They have a school of theology. They have a school for leadership, or I should say tracks. The leadership track, they have studies, the general studies track, if I can remember all of them. But these are courses that the organization offers for those who are interested in deepening their understanding of the Ascended Masters, of the Great White Brotherhood, of these teachings. So the Great White Brotherhood, it actually doesn't have anything to do with color of the skin. It is a brotherhood of those beings who have ascended, as we have mentioned before, and they work from a different plane than the physical plane, which is called the etheric plane, or some of people consider it to be the heavens. So they work from the heavens in order to help mankind, to help the planet, in order for us to overcome whatever challenges we may have, whatever difficulties we may have as a whole, as a group, as a planet, or individually as well. So help us in the sense of coming up higher, improving and growing spiritually, expanding our awareness as to what does it really mean to be here? Why are we here? And what are we here for? So they help us from above, help us to understand that in a deeper way, not necessarily mystical or mysterious way. It's a very logical way that the teachings are presented, and they're not difficult to understand. And so that's the Great White Brotherhood, this group of beings who are there to help mankind and the planet. And the Ascended Masters are those who have reached that level of attainment uh, that we are on this path to reach. In other words, I'm sure that all of us wants to do better, wants to be a better human being, or a better spiritual being, because we're not only this physical, we're more than that, So we have a soul, and we have a gift from God, which is what we call the I Am Presence, which is a part that was given to us by God, and that's the part of us that is perfect. We all do have that part that is perfect, that part that is sacred, and we're trying to reach that day by day through walking this path of what we call the path of initiations. And so that's what it is. That's what the Great White Brotherhood is. And with the Ascended Masters, these wonderful beings who have been here with us. And it's based on karma and reincarnation. It's based on what many philosophies, many religions do base their beliefs in karma and reincarnation. So it is what cause and effect. Our soul reincarnates in order to resolve what was not resolved in a previous lifetime, in order to make better choices of the ones. In other words, we may have made choices that really were not the best ones in a lifetime, let's put it that way. And then you come back in order to correct it, or it's an opportunity that God gives us in order for us to attain that level of consciousness that these masters have attained. We all have within us the potential to be what they are. And the Bible tells us, ye are gods. In what sense? We have the potential to be God. And through this path of initiation, we are given that opportunity, to become more and more of God through karma, resolving the karma, and reincarnating in order to walk this path and reach the utmost, which is come back to God's heart. And we call that the ascension in the light. It's the ascension of our soul to that part of us that is perfect, which we call the I Am Presence, the presence of God, or the God presence, the perfect part of us. So we walk this path in order to reach that to reach that level of perfection.
Thank you. So the goal of the path is you balance karma so you can and fulfill a calling to ascend back to God permanently so you won't keep coming back here.
That is correct. So that you don't have to, in other words, it's the rounds of karma and reincarnation. They end, these cycles end once you reach that level.
And you mentioned walking a path of initiation um, based on karma and reincarnation. How can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, what is this path of initiation? How do I get on it? How do I know if I'm on it? How do I get further on it?
The path of initiation is to accept, in my view, first of all, you accept the fact that you're here. The reason you're here is for you to overcome the initiations that come your way or work things out. In other words, you instead of, for example, if you are facing a challenge, if something happens that you out of nowhere and you don't know why, and you say, well, what is this? Why is this happening to me? Well, it's very, very uh, simple. It's happening because either uh, you've done something that caused it in this lifetime, or you've done something in another lifetime, and it's coming up in this lifetime to be resolved. We are not aware of our previous lifetimes, and actually, what we learn is due to God's mercy, because we may have been someone not very nice, or someone not kind, or someone in a past life. And God, in his mercy, in his merciful heart, doesn't want us to be um, focusing on what happened, on how we were before, on how terrible we were. No, we all have free will. So we may have done things that weren't very nice, but he's giving us the opportunity in this lifetime to make it right, to make it um, on this path of initiation. So that's the initiation, for us to accept these challenges as opportunity to make it better, opportunity for us to, in other words, work it in a way that is going to make it right. And we also, it's not a new term, is to transmute that karma. In other words, clean that out, clean that up. If there's something that we've done that was really heavy duty stuff, so let's clean it up now. And it's wonderful because we have been given by one of these ascended masters, whom we love dearly, beloved Saint Germain, because he gave to humanity, he gave to us a gift which is called the violet flame. So the violet flame is simply, it is a flame, it's violet, and it transmutes, it erases all of past karma, all that is not of the light, and it clears the way by us invoking it. There are prayers which we call decrees that we can use in order to clear this situation, this karma, this record, because all that we have done is recorded, and so we clear the records of all that is negative, all that is, like I said before, not of the light. And by clearing that, you are walking the path of initiation. That is the initiation. In order for us to overcome this, to make it better, and step by step, we're walking and coming up higher. We're walking and coming up higher, and it's not it's not, there's no mystery to it.
Mhm.
It's a formula that works. Just like all of the divine formulas that are given to us, for example, I'll give you an example that is very common to many other religions, and it's in the Bible, which is tithing. Just to give an example of how these formulas work. I have yet to meet someone who says, I have tried it and it doesn't work. Tithing works. It's proven. You know, you give 10% of what you of your gains, and God gives much more back to you. So the formula of the violet flame given to us also, it is a gift from God. It is given by this master that I mentioned before, our knight commander, our beloved Saint Germain. And so um, in other words, the path of initiation is not only given to us for us to work it out ourselves. Yes, we're going to work it out ourselves, but we have been given many tools in order for us to help us to make it um, possible for us
Mhm.
to transmute and to walk and to reach where we need to reach, you know.
So thank you for that understanding. So if you want to have abundance, one of the parts of the formula you're saying is not taking or stealing, because that would accrue to you karma of you will be taken from and you'll have less. But you're saying whether it's this or another life, but you're saying no, tithing, for example, is one way you give to God 10% in a church or wherever you are, and you will get back. So that's one method you're saying to increase abundance.
That is correct. And it definitely works. You know, all of us who have, and I tell you, it's very interesting because since I was brought up practically in this country, 11 years old, I started tithing when I was young. I was always in Catholic church, in Catholic schools. And so it was a practice. It's a part of the tradition, I would say. I really think it's part of the American tradition to tithe, you know, and so it's an enormous benefit for us to understand this law, the law of tithing, and to follow it through. It sometimes it's sad to see that some people don't are not aware, do not know that of this law, of this teaching, and we also pray for them in our organization. We also pray for people to kind of wake up to these treasures, because these are treasures, you know, that you can follow and be benefited from, not only yourself, but your family. It's wonderful, you know.
It's funny, just briefly, a couple of years ago, I gave a coat away and I had a new job, and the new job gave me a coat in the mail right after I'd given the coat away. That was good. So I believe what you're saying.
Uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh.
so can you tell us what happens to those don't, who choose, uh, for whatever reason, they choose not to walk a path of initiation? What could happen to them if they decide, I don't want to be good? I,
Well, I, in other words, I can't say for sure what would happen to them, but the teaching is, and the teaching is we have free will. The free will is, I believe, in my view, is what God respects the most in his in mankind. He gave it to us with the intention of us using it properly, making good use of our free will. However, um, there's no law that you have to do or have to choose the path to do goodwill. You have free will, so you're going to choose one path or the other. You know, there's really no in between. you're either going to do something positive or not, or you're going to do something that is not positive. And that is a choice. What happens is that the same way that when we walk a path of initiation with the intention of stepping up higher, of overcoming, and of becoming a better being, a better person, a better father, a better mother, a better friend, a better employee, a better whatever. You're walking this path and consciously doing things that are that you consider appropriate or godly, we could say that, doing things that are going to uplift yourself and others. And okay, so the same way that we're doing this and we're coming up higher, if, for example, someone decides to do contrary to that, they're really they're going the other way. They're really kind of going down, right? If goodwill brings you up higher, obviously the opposite will bring you down, will bring anybody down. And in this process, they are making more karma. Or if we don't follow the path, the path of goodwill, we also, any one of us, if we make the choices that are not of the light, then we will be making karma. We're going to be making karma that we are going to have to resolve one day, whether in this life we decide to again go back to the path that leads you to God, and that leads you to a higher consciousness, then we're going to have to transmute this karma of things that we did contrary to that. And the people who insist, are on this path of not really uplifting himself or herself and others, will have to one day answer to that, and it's just an accumulation of wrongdoing that needs to be undone before this soul can come up higher, So it is possible for somebody to decide to come to stop, let's stop here. I do want to change my life. I want to change. I want to follow the path that will lead me to something positive. Um, you know, I think all of us that have found the path have come to that decision, and so I don't know what may happen necessarily to somebody who kind of does the contrary. In other words, decides to just go that way. There is a teaching that is very, very intense and very meaningful, because we may very well lose our soul if we kind of give our back to the good, the light, to God, whatever you want to call it. You may very well lose your soul, just so that's something that one needs to think about. Yes, we do have free will, but there is consequences to all of the choices that we make, whether they're positive or not. And so we need to
And
be careful.
losing your soul, that might be something would take multiple lifetimes of chances and making that same choice over and over and over and over to go the wrong way. Or is that what you're saying? Or how do you want to say anything
Yes,
on that?
that's definitely the way that a soul may be lost, is continuously, lifetime after lifetime, lifetime. I mean, and I'm talking about, I don't know, millions of years of existing in this soul, coming, reincarnating, going back, reincarnating. And committing the same um, the same um, actions, having the same behaviors, and kind of deepening themselves into this situation where they deny, they refuse, they simply refuse. They have free will, so they can refuse to follow the path. So if they refuse, God will give them all the opportunities possible, all the opportunities, even at the very last moment when that soul goes before God, and God will ask that soul, so what is your decision? Do you want to go back and make it right? Or what do you want to do? In actuality, it is the soul who decides whether it wants to live on, to do the right, to bend the knee, or if it wants to just, uh, say, that's it, no more. So that's what happens. But God is so merciful that we don't know how many lifetimes a soul may have, but we do know that it's millions of years of, trying, God trying to give that soul the opportunity.
So it sounds like it's better to turn around now because it's just going to get deeper and deeper and cause yourself more pain.
Absolutely. Deeper and deeper, and it becomes harder and harder. From what we understand, I mean, it's hard as it is for those who decide to, well, I just want to make it right this time. It's so difficult. Can you imagine for somebody who has been on the other side for such a long time, for so many lifetimes? It's going to be difficult, but not impossible, and God is so, so merciful, so merciful. And God, we learn that God forgives even before we ask him to forgive us. That is how merciful he is. And he does forgive. There's a saying that, Jesus, I believe it was Jesus who said, come as you are. You don't need to become perfect first and then start walking the path. You come as you are, you know. You decide to follow God right there and then, right as no matter what you're into, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're saying, if your heart says, you know what, I want to change this. I want to really um, follow this path of initiation in order to be freed from all of this karma making situations, And that alone is an incredible relief for the soul. That decision alone is almost miraculous. And so it's a wonderful path to be on, because God is always, at least from my friends, brothers and sisters on the path, we all agree that, it's a wonderful walk with God, because you can feel his presence in your life. You can truly feel that you are protected, that you are loved, and that you're not alone. Even if you are physically alone, even, for example, my entire family is in Brazil. Although my son was born here, my entire family is in Brazil. So I am alone in the sense that I don't have family members here in the United States, but I'm not alone in the sense of feeling the presence of God in my life. And this path definitely gives us that. Definitely, you know.
So from what you're saying, I just want to add, so someone who has turned to some people call it the left-handed path. Maybe you killed someone. A lot of people, use drugs and they might have killed people or hurt people or whatever they've done. There's still opportunity because we're given so many lives. You can turn around at any time And you said because pain, some people might be afraid, well, it's going to be too much pain. But you said we have a tool, we were given a tool, the violet flame, that can transmute. That means take balance that karma without having to go through all of that pain.
That is correct. That is so true. So very true. And the dispensation doesn't come alone. In other words, it's not just, well, here is the violet flame, and these are the prayers, the decrees. You can also offer service, uh, to community service, or to service to your church, service to your family. You can be a volunteer at a hospital, whatever it is. It's also counted as a way, as a tool for you to use in order to transmute and in order to come up higher, walk that path and come up higher. There's also tools, for example, the gifts that we call them dispensations. Dispensations are gifts from God, from the masters, the transmutation. For example, other masters have given us the gift of doing these decrees, these prayers. If you do them, for example, you can do a service of an hour, or the minimum is 15 minutes of violet flame a day. But if you really want to accelerate, you can do more. You can do a longer. You can do an hour, 2 hours. I have gone as far as doing, I believe, a whole day. On one particular day, there are a few, the second, third, and even fourth of the month, and the 23rd of the month. If we do, whatever we offer in time of violet flame decrease prayers, then the brotherhood, the masters, they will increase that. It could be they will double it, they'll triple it. And so that's an acceleration, obviously, and a huge and enormous help for us to transmute even more of the karma that we need to transmute, you know.
That's marvelous. That is so helpful. Yeah, that's great. So
Yeah.
everyone, no one needs to feel there's not hope. No matter what they've done, if they're willing to bend the knee and come back, that can be cleaned up. And God has given in His mercy, like you said, so many different dispensations and tools. You can come home and feel close to Him and leave the old ways behind.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have met in my work. I also have interpreted for people in prisons. So for Brazilians or Portuguese speaking people who have um, violated the law and they are arrested. And so I need to visit them with their lawyer, of course, to interpret for them. And you see a lot of people who definitely decides, they do decide to, I'm tired of this. I don't want this anymore. It is very hard for them sometimes because they have lost faith in themselves. They have lost faith in anything good. There are people who think that this is it. I'm a lost case. There's nothing there for me anymore. And it's hard for them once they decide, because they do have psychological help. Sometimes and even when they accept that psychological help, it's not easy. It's difficult for them, because it's almost as though all of that vibration, that energy that is not of the light swallows them up almost. And that's what they become, and that's what they believe, that there's no hope for them. But many of them come out, and many of them do change, and many of them do walk that path. many, and the gratitude from them is simply incredible, you know. I've known two of these people who have made it out of this situation, this, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see that how God can work in somebody's life in such a, I would say, drastic way. It's incredible. It's a new person, totally new person, you know.
What about, I actually heard it recently, of people who lose someone and then they get angry with God. Do you have anything you can say about that?
Well, the anger towards God, it's very real. Uh, Many of us, I don't exclude myself, because it's a possibility in the weakness of a circumstance that may be a very, in other words, of excruciating pain. It's very common to be angry with God, especially those who do believe that God is their all. They turn around and say, wait a minute, how could you have allowed this to have happened? At that very moment, we don't think, people don't think, well, I made it happen, or even if I didn't make it happen, it happened for a reason that had nothing to do with God, actually, in the sense of, if it's something that's a returning karma or a returning situation, it's really, we are the ones responsible for whatever it is that caused it. Now, I would say that I think the hardest situation, circumstances for someone is, like you said, when you lose a loved one, and it's almost as though, why did you take this person away from me, God? You know, it's hard at that very moment to understand, or to be really in tune with your God, with your higher self, with your soul, and say, wait a minute, um, we all have the day that we were born. We all will have the day that we are going to be making our transition. And that cycle, yes, that cycle is totally dependent upon what we have done in other lifetimes. All of the cycles are dependent upon our doings, our decisions, our choices in this life and other lifetimes. God is only there really to help kind of administer, you know, well, this is what you did, and this is the result of it, or the returning cause and effect. This is what you did. This is what's going to happen. And even at that very moment, God is there. Even if there's anger against God, He's there. He's there, waiting for that son, that daughter to say, God help me. Because it's very curious that many times there are people that we hear, people suffering, but at the same time that they're so angry at God, they know that God is the one who's going to help them overcome this pain. And I tell you that we should not be so critical of ourselves, because there are also records that have been, in other words, projected. In other words, there's, just as there's light, there's darkness. Just as there are beings that work for the light, there are beings that work for the darkness. And these beings, not interested in us coming up higher or following the light, are going to instill doubt, fear, anger in these moments, these critical moments of our lives. So it's not really us. It's not our essence per se. It may very well be coming from outside. These energies, they take advantage of our weaknesses. And obviously, when we are in suffering, we're weak. It's a moment of weakness. It's a moment of uh, we let down our guards, and so our guard, and so we should not be blaming ourselves or feeling terrible because, oh my goodness, I felt anger towards God, because it may not even be something within us. It may be something projected. And even if we felt anger towards God, we need to remember that God has forgiven us even before we ask for forgiveness. So it's just to say, God, I'm so sorry that I felt this way. Because God is there all the time. And the same as when we do something not very nice to whoever it may be, and we come to that person and says, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have done that, or shouldn't have said that. God is there also to listen to us and to forgive us. And he has forgiven us even before we ask. I think that is so important for us to know, that God forgives us even before we ask for his forgiveness. You know.
I was just going to add, uh, some people, for example, if a mother or father and the child dies, or whatever it is, some relative dies young, could it be actually, of course, grief is always appropriate. You love people, you grieve, but it could be that that soul who died actually is making a graduation, possibly. It could be good karma. Is that possible?
Well, absolutely. In our teachings, we do learn that some souls, that's why some children, some babies may be born still. Some babies only live for a couple of days, couple of hours. Because that's the only time that they needed in order to ascend, in order to complete their path, or whatever it is that was pending, let's put it that way. So yes, it could very well be. And also, it's difficult for us, I guess, for anyone, especially in the Western civilizations, especially, I would say, since I am from South America, there's a Latin culture that gets very attached to families, to that tradition of being together and forever and ever, and it's just not that way. And so when we lose someone, it's a very painful experience. However, I can say that ever since I've been on this path, it's been much more, and I've understood it much better, and I have been able to accept it. I'm not saying that it's easy, um, but it's a much more, it's clearer to me that death, the physical death, is only a transition. So that's why in our teachings we say, so and so has made their transition. You're making your transition to another dimension, to another, plane, not a physical plane, but another plane. So it continues, the soul continues on. We who are right now in physical form are not able to see. There's some people, they say that some people do see. We're not able to see where the soul goes, but we are able to understand that it does continue on, although we don't have awareness of where it's going.
Mhm.
Still, we can ask and pray. We can pray for them. And there's a teaching that says that when somebody passes away, when somebody makes their transition, it helps a great deal if we think of all of the good things that they've done and actually try to become all the good that they were and try to kind of um, internalize them through the good things, to the good acts by following and being the good things that they were, the good person that they were.
So it's in a way immortalizing their goodness.
Exactly. That's right. Yes.
Right? Is there anything else that you'd want people to know?
Well, um, I say that these teachings have saved my soul. I say that very convincingly, or I try to convince people to at least believe me, believe my my story. Yeah. I think that it is possible for someone to turn around and say, "That's it, no more," and to follow this wonderful path because you learn much more than you you bargained for, or you learn a lot more, not only by listening or by reading the teachings, so many books and videos, and like I said before, the dictations and teachings that these two messengers left us, that I think in my lifetime, I would not, in whatever is the rest of whatever is there left of my life, I don't think I'd have enough in order to read all of these teachings that they left us. I would say that it is possible to do that, to turn around and to turn to God. And I think that it's actually, I don't like to, I don't want to say much easier, but it is not that difficult as so many people believe. I have people saying, I can't because this is not for me, it's too much for me. It's that, like, again, I said before, there are people who have lost faith in themselves and have lost that self-esteem. And it's sad because once you say, this is it, no more, I do want to follow this, you have all of the help in the world from these beings who are there um, specifically to help the soul come up higher. You know, it is not a piece of cake, but definitely it is possible. And I say to myself, my goodness, I would not be here. I know that I would not be here without these teachings. I know for a fact that I would not be here without these teachings. And I'm so grateful that I was given this opportunity. And I'm so grateful that I had the strength to say, wait, let me follow this and see where it gets me, see where it doesn't, why not try it? You have free will. So if you don't like it, fine. But at least give it a chance. Give your soul the opportunity to come up higher and to be closer and closer to God, which is what this world needs more than ever.
Where would they go to find the teachings?
Well, you know, We have websites. We have the bookstore on that website. We have groups. We have teaching centers, what we call teaching centers, and study groups throughout the world nowadays, you know. And there's many in many of the states here in the United States. And also calling the organization, the Summit Lighthouse, and to find out and calling one of us. There's a list of contact list for different states, for different cities even. And so, you know, and the most important thing is to really go into your heart. Even if you've never heard about the teachings, it's always wonderful to go into your heart, because your heart is where God resides. You know, it's where your guardian angel, our guardian angel, we call our guardian angel our Christ self. We have a little guardian angel, not little, he's huge, but anyway, in our hearts. And just go in and meditate, and God will guide you. You know, God guides us to where really our joy is, our happiness is, to really where we are meant to be, because we are meant to be happy. We're meant to be better than we were yesterday. We're meant to be more and more. So that's what I would say. And we're here, you know, we're here to talk to whoever would like to chat with us. When I say us, I mean you know, our groups, all the people in our groups and teaching centers. I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to talk to those who'd like to know more.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all of your wisdom and knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
God bless you.
God bless you.